It's early morning here in Belfast. As the city wakes up, echoes of sporadic protests pop up around the city at the news of Bobby Sands' death.
There is a house in New Orleans. It called the Rising Sun.
Hello and welcome back to Geek Legion of Doom. I'm Lisa from the Lisa Loves channel, and today I'm talking to you about a movie called The Troubles, a Dublin Story. Now, before I talk about the movie, obviously you may be able to tell from my accent, I'm from Ireland, I'm from the north of Ireland, and I have watched a lot of movies on this subject matter, so it was really interesting for me to watch another one to see another director's perspective. So let's get into what I thought of The Troubles, a Dublin Story. So this movie is written and directed by Luke Hanlon, who surprisingly used to be a windscreen repairman. This has been his dream project for many years, and it's something that he really struggled to get any state funding from. No one wanted to touch the subject matter, no one wanted the story, but Luke was determined that he wanted to tell this story, and he actually used his life savings to finance this movie. It was made on a very small budget, and in my opinion does not show at all. So kind of getting into what I thought of the movie. So the main two stars of this movie are Ray Malone and Adam Redmond. They star as two brothers that were born in the same year but are not twins, by the name of Sean and Francis Shannon. Now, being from Dublin, it could be seen that the brothers are quite far apart from the Troubles, but it's ever present in their living room, on the television. There's a lot of influence in the area from older men that are part of what's referred to as the Provos in this movie, which is like the provisional IRA. And they are going to inevitably get embroiled in something that they really should not have ever looked in the direction of. So a little background on the two brothers. One of them lives with his father, who is in the midst of dementia. He's having a really tough time dealing with that. And his father, he seems the gentler of the two brothers. And the other brother is a bit of a bad sort, it seems. He's married, he's got kids, he's aggressive, he's violent, and it just seems to be a kind of thing that's accepted. He's quite aggressive and violent towards his wife in front of his brother, who says absolutely nothing. We get a real picture of very different brothers here, of very different young men, and what I love about what the director has done here, which isn't really something that a lot of movies on this subject matter do, is that he's made these guys normal guys. He hasn't made them like the freedom fighters with the massive morals fighting for Ireland, and he hasn't made them the really nasty terrorists intent on blowing everyone up. He hasn't made them either of those subject matters. He has made them normal guys, which is exactly what members of terrorist organisations are. Yes, obviously there are terrorists, and I've no support for terrorists, but he has shown how perfectly normal these guys are. The backgrounds they come from, how different they are, even though they're from the same family. They're maybe involved in small petty crime like robbery, but very much that escalates when they join, thinking that they may be part of extortion or small time crime to finance the provisional IRA. They find once they're in that there's a step extra, a step more to be done to sort of be part of this fight. They're very much bigged up about being soldiers, and their ego is very much fed to keep them in this mindset that what they are doing is the right thing. And we see them come from this background of just normalcy. I did read an interview with the director, which was really interesting, which said, you could during the Troubles be living next door to someone that had their kneecaps blown off, which referred to as kneecapping here at the time. And the person that lived on the other side of your house could be the person that did it. It's that ridiculously stupid, and it is, and I grew up through it, and I feel that Luke Hanlon in this movie has got a perfect grasp of what went on, the kind of people that were involved, the control, how these young men get caught up in this situation. Please don't get me wrong in this. I've no support for the IRA or any terrorist organisation that uses violence to get what they want, but I do feel that the director here has just got it spot on with the kind of guys he has, or the characters he has actually worked into this story. So I think you kind of get the idea what I thought of the movie. So I don't really want to tell you much more about the storyline, guys. If you have an interest in this kind of movie, I would urge you to check out this film. I do feel it's one of the better ones of this ilk, telling this kind of story. I feel it was much more realistic. It presented these guys that were part of these organisations on both sides of the Troubles, where someone that you worked with was a very normal person, was your father that you didn't know, was your uncle, was your cousin, was someone that you worked alongside, or someone you went and had a drink in the pub with. These guys infiltrate society. It's how they can do what they do. I feel most movie makers that try to tackle this subject, especially people that didn't live through it, like Luke obviously did, coming from Ireland himself, I feel they come down on one or other side of the debate and they try to make a movie that's very much about pro-IRA or pro-cause, pro-why they did it, or they come down on the side of nasty, awful, terrible terrorists. Now, obviously, again, I feel you have to keep reiterating this, especially if you're from Ireland yourself. I've no support for terrorists on either side of the debate at all, but I just feel the writer and director actually's approach here is a much more realistic one for people to watch that will give them 100% of an idea as to what things were like. There's no overdramatics, there's no concentration on massive explosions and happenings like this. This story is two brothers' story. It's how they became involved. It's things that were expected of them. It's the hierarchy that they were working under. It's their family life at home, the realism that was captured here. There are little bits that will actually make you laugh. Which does sound ridiculous, but little touches, just as an example, it was quite known that someone that would be sent to, the term kneecap someone, so they'd done something they shouldn't have been doing. It may be drug running, it could have been any number of things, but the paramilitary's way of dealing with that was to kneecap them, which basically meant to shoot them through the kneecap. And quite often the person that did this to you would be someone that you would know. And they would give you the option to pull up the leg of your trousers or take down your trousers so that you didn't destroy your jeans. It's that ridiculous. They'd be willing to do this to you, but give you the option if you don't want to ruin your Levi's. And that, just that little amusing touch was in there, and it's, you know, it's so spot on. It's so exactly what happens. It shows how close these people are. It also, another interesting aspect that it shows is one of these young brothers. It shows a girl that he's interested in, someone like this budding romance is starting. They obviously have something, but it's someone really that he can't be with, because in the midst of all this trouble, Catholics and Protestants were not meant to be together. They weren't meant to have a relationship, and definitely not if you're a part of this kind of organisation. You should not be going down that route at all. So the pros, I think you've heard a few already. So obviously I thought it was really true to life. It was really a real honest portrayal. The acting performances of everyone involved here was fantastic. You really did feel emotions on all sides of the argument with a lot of the different characters here. How it was shot, it looked really good. It looked very gritty. It didn't look cheap. It was done in a very, very small budget, but this did not show as far as I'm concerned. It looked just as good as a movie that had been done on a massive budget. You can't really be wanting to portray anything other than realism when you're handling something like this, and everything looked like you were sat in the same room as these people, as it should do. Sound design was perfect. I like the fact that they didn't try and change up people's accents. I find quite often that in Irish and Scottish, also too, movies, that they tend to try and get people to speak slower, and as far as they're concerned, maybe more clear. They lose that authentic nature of the real Irish accent, which didn't happen here. I felt that people were allowed to speak like they spoke. It was more, you know, there was colloquialisms used. They didn't pander to trying to change how people realistically spoke in order that people that have an issue with accents could understand. Maybe that can be seen as a negative, but for me personally, it was a positive. I want to hear how people actually speak. If you have issues with understanding an accent, put on subtitles. It needs to be authentic, and to me, this was very much authentic. It was the main, takeaway that I would take from this movie. If this subject matter is something you're interested in, definitely check this one out. It very much is spot on with its realism. The cons, I really struggle to give you any, to be quite honest. There was no weak link in the acting. One other actual pro that I forgot to mention is the use of music in this movie is marvellous. Everything, I grew up holidaying in the south of Ireland with my family. It's a very normal thing for people from the north, from a working class background, which these boys are from as well. You can't afford like these big fancy foreign holidays, so every year my family would holiday in the south of Ireland. And a lot of these songs that were being played, a lot of these very sort of Irish country songs that were playing were things I heard growing up, very much sung in a proper Irish accent. There was a couple of more well-known songs in there too, but the use of the songs and when they were used was fantastic. Just really added to that proper authentic feel. It's a movie that I feel most people from this island would really enjoy because it doesn't glorify what these young lads are doing. It just shows the utter naivety and stupidity of what they've joined and now what's ahead of them. You know, that really is encapsulated really well in this movie. Cons, I can't really think of any. And I'm not just being biased because this is a movie where I'm from. It didn't drag at any stage. It was quite short. I think it was just over an hour and a half. I think a lot of movie makers now are, you know, they make a movie that's the 2 hours plus and sometimes there's just so much filler that's not required. I don't think this was the case in this movie. I really liked that we got that background information about the personalities of the two brothers and how different they actually were. And it didn't go massively delving any deeper than letting you know their characters and what they were dealing with at home, what their home situation was, which is all we really needed to start off with a movie. So yeah, I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't want to watch this movie. Another little snippet I read, which was so funny in an interview with the director, I'm really surprised he admitted this. In Ireland, we have a department store chain called Pennies, which if you're from the UK is very similar to Primark if you're in Northern Ireland. They really struggled with budget in this. Like one example was they wanted to use archive news footage of Bobby Sands. Bobby Sands was an IRA hunger striker, but they were going to have to pay €6,000 to use this footage, which was a massive chunk of the budget they had, so they didn't, obviously. But for clothes, for outfits, because they had such a low budget, they went in like with €1,000 to Pennies and they would buy up all the outfits that they needed. And one of them bought a Amazon tagger, and after they'd finished, they retagged all the clothes and brought them back, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, I have to admit. So this film is going to be made by hook or by crook, and it was a passion project of the writer-director. I feel it worked really well. I feel he's got a real future ahead of him in this. You would feel that he has been responsible for a couple of other pieces, but he's a pretty new writer-director here. And he just approaches this with what it feels and a lot more experience than he actually has. I was very impressed. Something I should mention actually is it's referred to as a hidden history story because with the Troubles we usually see movie representation from the north of Ireland, from right in the midst of the action. We rarely see something of people that weren't in the north, that were down in Dublin. And this is a perspective that the writer or director really wanted to portray, and that's what makes this a little bit different from the usual movie that you see. It's not over dramatized, it's not over glorified, it's just a warts and all. This is how it is. This is what these boys grew up with. This is how they got into this. It's really interesting to see that perspective, slightly different than we would usually. This is actually also based on the accounts of real individuals, so it is also a true story. So check it out, guys. If I had to score this movie out of 10, I would come in at an 8 out of 10, which as you can tell is a pretty high score. Let me know below if this is something you would fancy. Have you watched many movies about this subject? If you haven't and you want to sort of like delve into what the situation was about, what it's like, check this out, guys, because I think it is one of the most realistic movies about this subject matter that you will see. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Look forward to speaking to you next time.